Okay, so how is it going? I mean, the last time we spoke, we were sort of talking about the prospects of Jesse running with RFK, like, and he's like, well, we talked about it, and now
we did say "Make America Great Again" before,
and then Trump copied it from us. So we are the cutting edge here, but but now the next thing I know, I see Jesse introducing. And so where I am curious, like, what is going on there? What's going on behind the scenes there?
First, I have no concept of what you guys are talking about. Nothing really exciting has happened this week in this household. There's been no stress. There's been no. Yes, as I'm sure everybody has seen the interesting New York Times article that came out. It is all kind of political speculation. Just as we've said, like, there's been no official ask in any capacity of that kind of RFK Jr. asking Jesse to be his VP. And so as far as the governor's concerned, and we're all concerned, it's kind of like we don't really comment on the speculation of things,
right?
Because it's there hasn't been anything of that nature. Yes, Governor Ventura did. My dad did go to, it was in Arizona, and introduced RFK at a kind of get on the ballot campaign, because my father, as an advocate for third parties, has been advocating for all the third party candidates running, whether it be for president or Senate or, House of Representatives, mayor. He's a big proponent in breaking kind of the two party system. And so he supports everyone who's kind of in that process, trying to do that and trying to make a change, to get us out of that duopoly that controls this country. So I wish I could say, like, oh, here's this like wild stuff going on. There really hasn't been.
Okay, I thought I was getting the scoop.
I know. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you guys like some like wild stuff, but no, tragically, there hasn't been anything like that.
I didn't. You know what? This is when we
if they've been considering Jesse, that's that's their camp, but we haven't heard anything whatsoever.
Because when we put that out there, we get, of course, some comments about, because we have a lot of people that are not happy with where RFK is on Israel. And so when we would suggest that Jesse would be in an alignment with that, people are like, well, that's not right. And I'm like, but here's the thing. Jesse doesn't have to be in alignment with that. He is all about breaking the duopoly. He is all about like getting somebody in there that makes some difference in the system. And that is what motivates him. And I said that even on the show whenever this came up on our show a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So I know that I said, Jesse's not saying he endorses everything that RFK stands for. That's not what this is. It's not an endorsement. Like I saw that right away. It's just him standing up for what's right, which is having choices on our ballots. And I so got that from the very beginning. Like I knew it wasn't like oh yes, we're on the same page with everything. And reasonable people can have those discussions.
And him and Bobby have been friends for many years, long before Bobby really got into kind of this end of the political things. Like, they were friends back when Bobby was environmental lawyer, and I think they've kind of known each other and have talked at various times, for probably the last, probably since the, late 2000, early 2010s, somewhere in there. So that, they've known each other for a very long time. They do not see eye to eye on certain political issues, as you mentioned. They do on other things, and I think that's kind of one of the things that Jesse's always a big proponent of is, look, you're never going to find a political candidate, whether it's Cornel West or RFK, or even candidates within the Democrat and Republican parties that you are ever as a voter going to be 100% on, in terms of total alignment with all their views and everything that they say. What you have to always do as a good voter is say, okay, well, who do I most agree with, and who do I feel is coming at their candidacy from the heart and in what they believe in, they truly believe in, and not what they're kind of either believing in because it's popular or believing in because they have donors that tell them what to believe in. So that's kind of the one of the big central components of messaging to voters is you don't necessarily have to agree 100% of the time with everything that a candidate does, but you try to find those candidates at least 70% of the time, 70% of the issues, find that percentage of issues that you feel in a candidate you agree with, and is that enough to cast your vote for them. And so that's a good point that you make. Jesse and Bobby do not agree 100% across the board. And it's always interesting to see how people have characterized my father over the years. Because, when you look at like his policies that he enacted as governor, compared to the kind of weird pigeonholing they do because he's spoken at like Ron Paul's convention 20 some odd years ago, or that he's spoken at this thing, or that he's, supported, this third party candidate or the other. You make that great point. It's not because he universally shares all of their ideas. Right. It's because he's trying to break that system of Democrat and Republican over and over and over and over again.
I think you bring up an excellent point, and one of the reasons why I have been very bullish on RFK, not as a supporter, but as somebody who recognizes that if he is on the ballot in all 50 states, and it looks likely that he will be, he is going to present an off-ramp opportunity for people who no longer want to stay on the two-party duopoly road. And you go to the polls, you see how bad Biden is, you see how bad Trump is, and you just think, you know what the hell? I'm going to cast my vote for this person. And I think that that's where, Pop Ventura really has an idea about where the country needs to go. Yeah. Because remember, the two parties align to screw everything that gets in their way. So if he's on the ballot, that's the biggest hurdle as far as I'm concerned.
He'll absolutely clear 5%.
And that is really the thing.
He'll absolutely clear 5%. And we haven't seen that yet. So that is, that in and of itself would be celebratory.
We're having Jill Stein on the podcast next Thursday. And one of the things that, we make very clear, particularly to the Greens, that we make to the Libertarians, and obviously to Dr. Cornel West, is that the big difference with RFK is he has the resources. As much as it sucks that this is a money game, if you want to be able to raise the capital necessary in order to clear that 5% threshold, and then, because again, you obviously want to win, but you go in with the mindset of, we're going to change this thing. And so the way you change it is, if you clear 5%, you're going to get those written into law, federally matching funds, although Lord knows they'll try to pass some amendment to say that no longer exists. They did, the requirements with Ross Perot to getting on the debate stage. So as far as I'm concerned, they're going to try it, but you have to be willing to try whatever's necessary to break away from this current system. Because as far as I can see, it's already breaking as it is.
Yeah.
Now it's just a question of how we top it over.
Yeah, no, I completely, that's great points that you make. And I think also another interesting aspect of third-party candidacies is you also have to look at, they a lot of times will, in many different elections over the years, sometimes that third-party candidate, even if they have no shot of winning, what they're running on can sometimes influence then what all the campaigns start talking about. You saw that with Ross Perot in his original runs back in the early 90s. Suddenly everything was economy because he started bringing it up. You see that in other third-party races too, where they'll bring up something, whether it be, back before we became so hyper aware of the environment and the dangers of it. You saw Green Party candidates who would gain a little popularity, and then suddenly that became a talking point, and the other two parties had to jump on that ship because they realized, oh, this is what people really are focused on. Not our bullshit talking points, or who can throw a football, or have a beer with the voter, which we've seen played out over and over and over again, and those kind of fake little things that they do to look how cool he is.
You don't think it's cool when they go and eat the corn dog at the Iowa State Fair? That's not convincing you to vote.
You know what though? Honestly, Joe Biden holding the ice cream cone, that is his legacy. Joe Biden holding an ice cream cone and unable to say ceasefire is his legacy. But, one thing that's interesting when you talk about what is really the difference between candidates that you're not going to agree with on everything. And I'm actually okay. I would vote for someone that I didn't agree with on anything if they were the non-corporate candidate and were properly representing the majority of my district. So I've said it before, I will vote for a non-corporate conservative before I will vote for a corporate liberal. And it doesn't even matter if I necessarily agree with them. If they are a person of principle and are going to be following what most people want, it's irrelevant. So for me, it's about, is somebody going to use their brain? Is somebody in this for tribal partisan hackery? Is somebody really have any principles whatsoever? And most importantly, are they answering to the majority of their constituents? So if I live somewhere that's very conservative and most of the people want conservative stuff, that's just too bad on me. Okay. And I think more people have to accept that when you're in the minority, you're not going to get your way so long as you support the idea of democratic principles. So I just in my personal opinion, to find people that are just capable of using reason and seeing their job as a public service versus what all their personal opinions are about things. But, that's just me, and I'm kind of crazy that way.
Yeah, really.
Well, I think it's very easy that we get lost in the kind of the dog and pony show and the American Idol aspects of our elections, that a lot of times what you're talking about gets lost because people don't, that idea that, hey, I'm doing this as a public service. I'm running because I feel a duty as a citizen to give back to my community by running for office. They forget that the part of running for office is that you're giving back. You're saying, you know what, I'm going to take the time out of my private life to be a part of this great grand experiment that is the United States of America's government and give back. And I think that we have completely lost sight of that, even on a level of like, even amongst third party candidates. I think a lot of times we lose that basic fact that this is not about playing politics and becoming a career politician or someone who just runs over and over and over and over and over again, that this is ultimately about public service. That's what this all boils down to. Democrats and Republicans don't give two shits about public service.
No.
They're there to elevate themselves and then the political apparatus and the lobbyists behind them. So that's where when you're looking at third party candidates, you really got to do your homework as a voter and say, okay, who's running based on ego? Who's running based on they have maybe one idea and one issue and that's it. And even when they get in there, they're not really gonna know what they're doing regarding the multitude of other things that they have to be focused on. That was one of the biggest things I remember from Jesse's original candidacy is, he had his set of ideals. And then when he was running, they would, other political issues at that time in Minnesota would be brought up. And, my dad being, the honest person that he is, literally had to answer some questions saying, you know what, I don't know. But I promise you the next time we have this debate or the next time we have this interview, I will do the research and find out those answers for you. And having the guts to actually say, hey, you know what, I don't know that. Instead of the standard political game of if they ask you a question that you don't know, we'll answer a totally different question that has nothing to do with the question that they asked. How many times have we seen that played out over and over again over the years in elections? So that's the key, whether it's a presidential election or a mayoral election or a sheriff election, even, whatever the moment that you have to really vet the candidates yourself, take the time to do it and see who does truly want to do this as a public service, not just for themselves or their party or whatever it might be.
That was always one of the things that I loved so much about Jesse. And I've been a fan, like I said, I've been a fan since the original days, not the Predator days. That was not my thing, but like the wrestling days. And I also of his books. And one of my favorites is Republicans and Democrats. And that was very eye-opening to me. But I always loved that he served one term, recognized that it was a term of service, and then moved on. And that to me is so, like, it speaks volumes as to what someone's motivation is and why they're doing what they're doing, because he could have sat there for another 4 years. But of course we also know that it was kind of expensive for him to be sitting there because of all the things. So we kind of know that story. But no, I mean, these people that want to just sit there forever. And, our mission has always been transforming politics into service. And for me, it's just personally, I don't want to do this any longer than I would have to do this and be around these people any longer than I would have to be around these people. But it's like sometimes somebody has to be the grown-up in the room. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.